I'm Nicole Blanchette-Nahili, and this is the second in a series of videos on analytics for journalists. Analytics are used by all platforms of news and help inform decisions on everything from where content should be placed on a web page to what types of stories are included in a TV newscast. There are a lot of different analytics tools used in newsrooms. For these modules, we're going to look at Google Analytics for the Ryerson website. As the interface for Google Analytics itself can change, and individual newsrooms use a number of different programs, the goal here isn't to give you an exact how-to on the software, but an understanding of how analytics work and some basic navigation tips. In this module, we're going to look at how you can find out where your audience is coming from using the acquisition data. If you click on the acquisition heading, you'll see a drop-down menu appear that starts with an overview. The overview shows you how your audience is getting to your site. This pie chart on the top left breaks the information down into a number of channels. First up, there's organic search. That's someone arriving at your site by typing keywords into a search engine and being given a link to one of your stories or your homepage. Direct traffic comes to your site through a bookmark or typing in the URL, but it's also the category that everything gets dumped into if the code can't determine the actual source. And this metric can also be thrown off by a big company or agency where the system is set up so that all computers share the same IP, or what you might think of as a computer's address. For example, thousands of people working on different computers in a government office might appear as an individual user, so keep in mind that direct traffic numbers aren't really refined. Referrals happen when another site that is not a search engine provides a link to your site. Social is where you'll see what social media sites your traffic is arriving from. So for example, if my friend posted a link on Facebook and I followed it to the Ryersonian site, my visit would be recorded here. You'll also notice an email category in this timeframes acquisition report. That just means someone was directed to your site through a link they received in an email. To the right of the pie chart, there's a graph showing sessions per day. And if you look underneath that, all of the acquisitions are listed with the percent of new sessions or users for each of the channels, as well as the bounce rates for pages visited through the categories, pages per session, and average session duration. You'll see on the right-hand side of the page, there's a section called Conversions. That's an option that's not set up on the Ryersonian, but basically, using Google Analytics, you can set goals that are met by users interacting with your site in specific ways, like a certain amount of time spent on a page, or the number of pages visited, or you can set goals for events. Events include things like downloading a video. If you had one of those goals set, each time it was met, it would be counted as a conversion. If you click on the individual channel, you can get some really detailed information. This is the organic channel, and just below the graph and above the chart below, you'll see some words in black, some highlighted in blue. Right now, keyword is in black, and that's the data you're looking at. The keywords people typed in to find the Ryersonian. If I select source, it shows me where they came from. In this case, most did a Google search. If I select landing page, it shows me where they ended up, or what story they landed on. The other option just takes you to a different category, so we're just going to skip past that. You'll notice during this time frame on the Ryersonian that the organic searches were quite high. It turns out the search term people were using was YouTube sex, which linked them to a Ryersonian story on a YouTube sex educator. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably not what they were looking for, but it did bring a lot of people to the site. However, they didn't stay, as you can see from the bounce rate. They must have left to find some, let's just say, a different type of content. You can see what an impact social media referrals can make on your website if you look at these Ryersonian stats from March 11th to April 11th. Reddit pushed a story about white students being banned from a student union-funded event, and that really boosted traffic to the site. But again, the bounce rate was pretty high, meaning once readers checked out that story, they didn't stick around. Another note, some of the options on Google Analytics give you pretty much the same info, but in a different format. And seriously, I think someone at Google needs to come up with a few more original headings, because although a referral usually refers to a channel, in this case, where another site is linking to yours, the referrals in the acquisition drop-down menu is different and also includes social referrals. We're not going to worry about that for the purpose of what we're doing. I just wanted to acknowledge that navigating through these types of sites can be a bit confusing, which brings me to our next subheading that is also a channel: social. Not all of these areas are fully used by the Ryersonian, but we'll just touch on a few. Network referrals tells you from which social media site you're getting the most hits, and clearly Facebook leads this category. If you go into landing pages, you can see where social referrals, which are just links from Twitter or Facebook, for example, are taking your readers. Trackbacks shows you which sites are linking to yours and from where the reader was linked. Users flow is particularly useful in terms of looking at engagement because you can see how readers are making their way through your site. Here, as we've already seen, the biggest percentage is coming from Facebook, going to the homepage, and then some of those readers visit that story about students being banned from the event. And users flow gives you a different visual to show how those Reddit readers we talked about in the first video dropped off the site after checking out that one story. You can also see how some people enter the site via a particular story, then head to the homepage and find more stories of interest. Now, we could go even more in depth with the data here, but again, the idea is just to get you familiar with navigating through analytics data, thinking about the way your readers find you, how that might impact how you reach out to them, or even shape your content. And that wraps up this module on acquisitions data. In the next, we'll tackle the behavior metric.